And I predict, by placing Elizabeth May in a riding that we have polled her at the same level of support last year as the incumbent MP, Saanich Gulf Islands, I predict that we will have an elected leader in the next election. I give you that leader, Elizabeth May.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I call that encouraging. Thank you very much for your support. It really is something that one never takes for granted and has to constantly earn, and I'm very grateful. Now, it wouldn't be a Green Party meeting if I didn't be able to start my major keynote address with a number of housekeeping things that people asked me to mention on my way to the podium. I'm sure you understand. So at the Green Teacher table, a dear friend of mine who's quite a fabulous writer and researcher, Paul McKay, who's also a musician, has donated books and CDs. 100% proceeds to the party, so you can buy them there, thanks to Tim Grant of Green Teacher. So go look for them outside. And the other thing I have to mention, and I did mention it last night when Rich Tyson wasn't here, but because he wasn't here, he doesn't know I mentioned it. So I need to mention again how important it is for everyone to participate in the Pledge for the Planet. And if you happen to be watching out there on your computer screen through live web streaming or through CPAC, or through some miracle of broadcasting, the national networks decide to allow me to ask all Canadians to help us fundraise tonight, let me mention that we have the Pledge for the Planet tonight, and it's a political first. It's the first time a political party has ever attempted a national, essentially telethon by web. And I also want to start this speech by thanking outgoing members of Council. Rich Tyson, who's worked so very hard and taken on a tremendous set of tasks on the fundraising committee. Joe Foster, who's been chair of Council, has contributed mightily to the work of the Council. Larissa Shasko, who's not with us today, but is leader of the Saskatchewan Green Party, who has left Council, and Laura Jackson from Newfoundland and Labrador. We've had a number, and a dear friend, Huguette Allen from Okanagan Shuswap. Great work from a lot of great volunteers. I didn't write up the list before I got up here to this moment, and I'm quite sure that I will regret that. But let's hope I have done a proper and inclusive thank you to outgoing members of Council, and thank you so much. Je suis très fière d'être ici aujourd'hui avec tout le monde, le Parti vert et le Parti pour l'avenir. Je veux dire quelque chose d'importance pour la situation actuellement au Canada et autour du monde. As the first decade of the first century of the new millennium comes to an end, we should be in Canada well on our way to turn that corner in the global transition away from fossil fuel addiction. We should be well on our way, closing the gap between the wealthiest and the poorest in Canada and globally. We should be building local, resilient communities. We should be confident of our food security. We should be experiencing a vibrant democracy in which engaged citizens know that their elected representatives are working tirelessly on their behalf with honesty and integrity for the benefit of the common good. I think you all know that it's tragic that none of these things are true. In fact, by each of these critical trend lines, we are moving backwards. And in some areas, we're moving backwards more rapidly than we had ever feared or dreaded our future. Greenhouse gases continue to rise in Canada. Many countries around the world have taken action to reduce greenhouse gases, but still globally they rise. The middle class is being squeezed, feeling increasingly insecure. You might think that it doesn't really matter much, but I can't tell you, this is such a critical indicator. If we don't understand that without a healthy, secure middle class, there is no real democracy, there is no real time for civic engagement, we lack the ability to provide those things that we all care about. This is a critical indicator. The poor are falling further behind, and their numbers are growing. And democracy itself is in crisis. We have lots of indicators for this. The trend lines aren't good. Canadians, as we know, are voting less. Politics itself is increasingly dominated by hyper-partisanship, almost a state of non-stop electoral war. It's creating an unhealthy, even toxic climate, not just in the House of Commons, not just in question period and committees, but spreading across the country, and it drives voters away. Canada's economy, and in a sense even our culture, is being threatened by things that are presented to us as progress. We used to have an economy, and we've always known we were quite dependent on our natural resources, and historically we used to describe ourselves somewhat pejoratively as hewers of wood and drawers of water. And we wanted to change that. We wanted to move to greater productivity. We wanted to see all the indicators of the Canadian economy performing well rising. Well, the Prime Minister has told us that Canada is an energy superpower. I think trying to blow away the past notions of hewers of wood and drawers of water. But what kind of superpower, and this was a point made, and I should credit it, by Gord Laxer of the Parkland Institute, who spoke at the quite phenomenal, for those of you who missed it, climate summit that the Toronto Danforth Greens hosted last weekend. What kind of superpower isn't allowed to say no to its main customer? What kind of superpower would be unable to redirect domestic oil supply to areas of the country that suddenly experienced an energy crisis? Bear in mind, we import 54% of the oil we use. And if OPEC and Nigeria cut off supplies to Eastern Canada, and Greens from the Maritimes know this to be true, we have no domestic policy whatsoever to meet that challenge, nor would we have the capacity to say no because of the NAFTA energy chapter. This isn't really a description of an energy superpower. Lacking energy sovereignty, lacking an energy policy, we're essentially boasting of being energy lackeys. We have shifted from drawers of wood and hewers of wood and drawers of water to scrapers of bitumen and wasters of water. And that is not progress. In the process of skewing our economy in this way, and this is the economic shift that even the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has warned the Canadian government represents a risk to a healthy, diverse economy, and the risk of Dutch disease for those who really study their economic textbooks. In the course of this, we are risking becoming a petrostate dependent on a petrodollar, and that is not healthy. Countries that understand how to handle this, and there are very few in number, know that you have to take the money off the table. You have to take the royalties and the taxes that come from that one-time boom in non-renewable energy revenue. You take it off the table and you put it in a fund for later. And that keeps your democracy healthy. There's excellent analysis on this for those who want to read more deeply, that when you see what happens when a petrostate and petrodollars flood, voting rates go down, civic engagement goes down, democracy is threatened, and you lose control over your country. Norway avoided this, and ironically, Norway avoided it by following the plan of Premier Peter Lougheed of Alberta. Norway took Peter Lougheed's plan and implemented it. Ralph Klein took Peter Lougheed's plan and trashed it. And that is why Alberta's running deficits and Norway has a $400 billion heritage fund, a carbon tax, and takes climate change seriously.